Welcome to another episode of Swashbuckling with Code. I'm Jimmy Cleveland, and it's a very exciting episode today. We're finally going to get into some of the really cool stuff that the Gatsby image plugin ecosystem allows for. So I think it's one of the first things that people really notice about Gatsby sites. Besides the blazing fast speed, it's one of the things that complements that. Lots of really cool stuff to get into, and I'm pretty excited about it, so let's just get right to it. So we have this image on our very basic Gatsby site, and if you go and look at the code for it real quick, it is imported in, well, we're using the query way, but we could use it either. It's in a very simplistic way that you can use in a lot of standard JavaScript bundled projects. This one in particular here is just the import syntax, and you can use that, and you can pass it through the source, and that will give you the path to it. Or you could use a query for it if it's already been used through the source plugin. But what we're going to do now is take this a bit further and use Gatsby image. So Gatsby image is trying to solve a slew of problems that revolve around images on the web. So images are the largest thing that people usually download on sites. They contribute to a lot of the slowdown of sites. They're not like the only thing, of course, but they are a big factor. So what Gatsby Image is trying to solve here through the ImageSharp plugin, they have a great little synopsis here of the problems they're solving. The breakdown of it is that you want to size your images accordingly based on the viewport size. So a mobile device isn't downloading a gigantic image on a desktop. You really want to use modern compression or modern image formats, which a lot of sites just aren't doing, period. And then you also want to do lazy loading so that you don't just load every single image on the page right when the user gets there and just bloat up their initial view. You want to load them on a need to have basis as they scroll down, because they might never scroll or they might not go to that area. And then the last one here is actually kind of a little bit more modern take on things. It's the content layout shift that you're trying to avoid, which Lighthouse from Google has actually started putting in Lighthouse 6 as one of their major metrics that they show. So that's pretty cool that they're solving that too. So let's take a look at what this looks like real quick. So they have a demo. You can pop over here. Oh, I had it open here. They have a demo that you can pop over to here, and I think one of the basic ones here, the blur up, is almost a good example. I wish the page was a bit longer, but you can see here on a regular speed when we reload, there's this like interesting little like blur fade in effect. Okay, so if we go to the network tab and we were to throttle that to fast 3G per se, you can see that when we do that, everything's really blurry, and then it smoothly transitions in. Okay, so what this is trying to do is, let's go to Dig real quick. I'm sorry, Dig, I just know that you have a problem where you have a content layout shift in your initial view. So I'm going to pick on you for a little bit. So if we throttle this to fast 3G, and we're going to refresh this page here, what you'll see is that some of the content loads in with no images, right? And then it all shifts around. And this is pretty annoying as a user when, if you haven't experienced this, I'm sure you have if you use mobile and you browse the web at all. When you're scrolling down on a page and then your content just starts shifting around all of a sudden, and it can get real crazy with modals and content shifting and all that stuff. So that's a content layout shift. And so what this is doing is it's taking a base64 version, which we will look at in a moment, that's these right here, of the image, and it's going to fill up the space that it normally would take up, and then load it in or transition to the totally sharp image once it's ready. Okay, so that's that. That's the gist of what's going on there, and I think the rest of it will make sense if we just start doing that code. So what we want to start with is our Gatsby image. You need to install this, and then you need to install these. So I'm just going to copy these ones just so I get it right. We'll go over to our terminal, shut down our project, yarn add these two, and then we'll also need Gatsby image, because that doesn't that does come with some of the starters, but we built this starterless from the beginning, so we haven't needed this yet. While that's going on, I'll go back to here, and you'll see that all you really need is Gatsby Transformer Sharp and plugin Sharp, because we're already sourcing our images. So we'll copy these two, Gatsby plugin Sharp, Gatsby Transformer Sharp, go over to our code, go to our Gatsby config, and we can just paste these right on the end here, okay? And we already had Gatsby Transformer Remark for our markdown. So if you remember, you can source, there's source plugins to just grab it from file systems or other sources. It might be from an API or something like that. And there's transformers to turn it into a different type of data. And so this plugin Sharp is an image processor that we're going to use, and the transformer is going to transform our data into that. Okay, so now that this is done, we'll run yarn develop, and then we will go to our GraphiQL as soon as that's done. I think I might already have that up. I do. Graphical. Let's reload that, and let's actually start from scratch here. I'll show you that. Okay, so yeah, that's done. And now you'll notice that we have this image sharp property and an all image sharp. So let's take a look at that real quick. We can just go straight to nodes, and you'll notice that there's fixed, fluid, and some stuff. So let's start with fixed. Okay, interesting. You know, you've got an aspect ratio, the base 64 that I just talked about, height, source, original name. Let's just take a look at some of these, okay? We'll leave those alone for now, but I am going to cover them. And here you go. So this is just grabbing that image. You'll notice our familiar vterz from Unsplash image, tree in a forest, and here's the base 64. Now, let me just show you that real quick. You can actually just copy this entire string and just paste it into your browser, and you're going to get the image. So like I said before, well, maybe I didn't explain it clearly enough, so let's go over now. You can think of this like the code for your image at a very, very small size. Small enough that we could send it along with the initial document download, so we don't have to make another trip to the server and request that image and load it afterward, okay? So that's what's going on there. It's pretty cool. And how we want to get this is kind of strange. You might think that you just do it from all image sharp. Let's go back to the docs. And how you do get this actually is typically off of the file itself, because we need to know where that file is, and then it's going to have a child image sharp property. So let's build that query real quick and bring that over. So if we go to file, and I already have this built. I want to start all over, sorry. Okay, so file, and we want to look for, there's all these purple things are how you can query or how you can find a particular item. Since we're just looking for one, we want to find the relative path, and I'll just leave that there, but that'll give us this file right here. And then what we want off of that is the child image sharp. I should probably bump this up a little bit, sorry. So child image sharp is now going to be nested onto our file. Isn't that pretty cool? Like before we were using file to query and we didn't even have this thing, so it's added it to our file so that we can access it that way, as opposed to just image sharp. So then fixed, what we want here is all of these. We want to say, okay, source set, we will need the width, we will need the height, we will need the base 64. And I don't think we need the aspect ratio, but I'll grab it just in case. Okay, and I'm not gonna grab, well, I'll grab both actually. So fluid, I'm going to explain these as I show them because I think it'll make more sense. So we'll get fluid as well, and fluid will get source set, source, sizes, base 64, aspect ratio. That looks good to me. Okay, do that query. Here's the result, but let's just take this whole thing, copy it, and jump over to our code. So we don't need you anymore. And what we will do is we'll paste this here, and you'll notice that we already have a query kind of going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything inside of these braces, and then I'm going to place it here inside that query, just because I already had it named and everything, you know, no big deal. And get rid of that and save it, and there we go. So we still got our file, and instead of just grabbing the path, absolute path, we're going to get child image sharp these properties. So now you'll get to see how this works image-wise, and then you'll know why there's a fixed and a fluid. So we don't need these anymore. We're going to import we can just call this image from GatsbyImage. That's the normal convention, okay? And then you call this like a normal image tag. It's uppercase here just to, you know, it's a component. But you need to pass it fluid or fixed, one or the other. So I'm going to first pass fluid. And how I would do that is I'm going to get my data back, and then I'm just going to climb down this query. So this whole thing would be my data. So I'm going to say data.file.child.image_sharp.fluid. And you can also do an alt tag, just like a regular image. So we'll say the sweet tree or something. You know, that's not a great one, but you get my point. Okay, that's that. So we probably shouldn't have to restart. It should just be good. And it looks like it is. Cool. Now you'll notice that now, when we resize this, see how I did that blur in effect? And when we resize it, this is what fluid does. It makes it to where that it's going to scale with its aspect ratio, you know, to the size. So it's basically like width 100%. You can think of it that way for an image. But it's pretty cool for that purpose. Now when we reload, boom, we get that sweet blur in effect. And let's put two of them on the screen real quick so you can see the difference. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, but now I'm going to pass it the fixed prop. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do fixed. Okay, so we can do this because we have a child image sharp, and underneath that we have a fixed and we have fluid, and it has all of these. So we're passing this like entire object of these properties to it. And I think that it also would make some sense to show you if we log data.file.childImageSharp. So now we have a fixed one, and notice that it just kind of grabbed it, and it doesn't resize. Okay. Interesting, right? So this one's fluid and this one's fixed, and that's why they're named that way. Now they're for different purposes. Most of the time I use fluid. I think that's probably the most common one, but there are times when fixed is useful as well, and they behave a little bit differently. So the first what we'll do is we'll look at the properties on this. You'll notice that there's this fixed and there's this fluid. So the fixed one has aspect ratio, base 64, height, source set, width, right? It's got all these properties that come along with it. Aspect ratio, base 64, sizes, source set. So the important part is that we need sizes for fluid, and you need width and height for fixed, and the rest of their attributes are shared, okay? So it's pretty annoying to have to remember all of this. So what Gatsby has done has created a little shortcut here. So if you go over to the docs, they're going to show you at this point, they do ... GatsbyImageSharpFixed, okay? And if you go down here, this transformer sharp, these are all of the fragments that they give you, which you can think of just like a quick little function or shorthand to give you all of those properties that you need. And we're going to go over a couple of these, but let's start with GatsbyImageSharpFixed. So ImageSharpFixed, all you're going to do is paste that right here, but you need to do ... Now, why is this? This is a GraphQL way of basically creating like a shorthand or a mix-in to where this will just automatically grab all those properties. It's just kind of a GraphQL thing that you learn. And then we're going to do the same thing here and do ... GatsbyImageSharpFluid. So they've named it this. And that will give us all the same properties. And now when we go back to here, unless I did something dumb, yay, I didn't, they'll still work. So that's, this tripped me up for a while when I very first started. I was like, what is this weird query right here that we have to do? But now, you know, I understand that it's just a combination of all those properties. Pretty sweet. So that's what they're expecting from fluid and fixed. All right. Now we can also on fixed pass in some settings, which is pretty cool. We can do width, and we can set that to 800. And let's see if I can jump back over here. Let's set it to fixed 1200. See how it's bigger? 800. Of course you see that. You're not blind. That should have changed back. What's going on here? 600. How peculiar. Well, I must be doing something wrong. Let's take a look here. Am I fixed width? No, you don't need pixels. You just pass fixed. The width? We'll do the width and the height, but you only need the width. I'll show you. So let's say we want to do that for 100. I want to do the height for 100. I might just need to rebuild the query, honestly. That's... Oh, no, that time it worked. How strange. Okay. So, yeah, you can see that you've got this beautiful little 100 by 100, but I don't know why that was so hard to say. I can actually change this to be something like, let's say we wanted to make it tall. So we'll make this like 400 tall, and then we'll make it 200. Let's try that. Will you please resize? I swear. I don't know why it's not resizing. Let's try and rebuild. I think it's just taking a long time to generate that for some reason. Okay. Reload that. There you go. I don't know what your deal is, buddy, but this is the gist of it. So you can see what's cool about it is it didn't just, you know, like destroy the aspect ratio of the actual image. It just cropped it so it's centered, and that's pretty neat. So we can query this in some different sizes however we like, in different proportions. Now I want to show you what's going on here in the Elements tab. This part's pretty interesting. I think we need to zoom in a couple times for that. That should be good. So you'll notice that we're using a picture tag. That's what comes along with this Gatsby image. So let's go all the way up to the Gatsby image wrapper. So this is where it starts. When you use the image tag, it's going to bring in this Gatsby image wrapper here, and it's automatically set all of these properties for you to do object fit, you know, the position relative and overflow hidden and all that stuff to make this image just work out. And it works really well most of the time. Sometimes you have to do fiddle with a few things, but overall it works great. You can see they're using padding bottom to get the aspect ratio like to fit so that it resizes. It's really cool. Because normally if you were just do, you know, width, it wouldn't work out this way. So that's pretty sweet. And then there's a picture tag here. So this is the starting image. Let's actually go back a step. See how this is the base 64 that we talked about? So if we look at the network panel, when we do a request here, we'll see that there is this base 64 that gets downloaded right off the bat. And you would see the initiator as the document if we were serving, but we're doing development mode, so it's showing it as React. But so we get this image right off the bat. That's that blurry part that you're seeing right here that loads in. Then when it fades properly, that's using the picture. So the picture has this source set here that we're interested in. And the source set is basically a bunch of viewport sizes that it's trying to tell us, okay, at 200 width, this is the image you're going to serve. You're going to serve this image at 400, this one at 800, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is really cool. Let's show that. We go and shrink this down to really small. Actually, yeah, I should do this on mobile itself. This will probably be a little bit better. And change it to responsive. So cool. So go to the network tab here, and we'll do it right here. I think you should be able to see it pretty good, hopefully. So I'm going to hard refresh here. And the first thing you'll notice is that we got these initial base 64s, the super micro version of it, and then we got this is the wide one, and this is the tall one. We also got an initial download, 17 KB and 64 KB. Now look what happens when I resize this. See that? How another request came in here? 70 KB. And then if I keep getting it a little bit bigger, we get another one for 157 KB. So it's getting a little bit larger. And it's kind of hard to tell, but what's happening is it's requesting a larger image size as the image gets bigger. There's a 292. There should be one more. Let's see if I can get it. Get smaller. I can't get it. There should be one more after that. So that is so cool. Now, obviously, your user isn't going to be downloading all these things because they're not going to be willy-nilly resizing their phone or whatever. But if they changed it to like a landscape and it happened to have a bigger image, it would download that as well. So that is really nice. What we're accomplishing here with Gatsby image is making sure, I mean, look at this tiny image that we downloaded is the first one, and then 64 KB. The user would have downloaded all 292 KB of this first image on mobile, this size right here, somewhere around here, for no reason, because we determined that it was just way too big and it wasn't worth it. So now they are getting, and you can change these, you can customize these to whatever you want. Now they're getting the right size for their device, no matter what. Yes, that is very cool. We're going to take it a step further. So now if we go back over here, you might notice that there is this beautiful thing called underscore with Webp. Now, when we looked at this, these are all JPEGs, correct? So if we go back over to here and we say, let's tack on with Webp on these. Okay, and I don't trust this, so I'm going to rebuild. I don't trust like that. Cool. We're going to go back to this view. We're going to reload. Look at this. So these are JPEG still because it's just the base 64. But now we have Webp. I humbly apologize for the rocky transition here. I had an interesting situation come up, as things are wont to do when you're making videos. So what happened was the previous image that I was using was actually becoming a little bit larger after going through Webp. That's pretty rare for me, but I thought that I'd give a little disclaimer about why that can happen. So sometimes if you have an image that has already gone through some lossy compression and there's some artifacts and Webp is trying to kind of like perfect those or make those a little sharper, but it actually ends up making the file size bigger, but not actually any better. So that's unfortunate. It's usually a small amount of increase. It's not a big deal. And generally, Webp is a pretty good silver bullet for me, but it's a good disclaimer to know about and to keep in mind that, it doesn't always work perfectly. But let's take a look at this real quick. So this new image that I have, sorry to mess up your name, Janko Furlik or Janko Furlik. Thank you for allowing us to use this image. So I've just grabbed the next one I saw on Unsplash that was lovely. And what I'm doing is, let's go over to the code real quick so you can see. So I have a regular image, and that's just using the public URL. So it's going to just be the raw image. We've set the max width to 100% just so that it matches the size of the other ones. Otherwise, it'd take up the whole screen. And then we have a regular file, child image sharp fluid, and then child image sharp with Webp. So down here, I just wanted to show what you can do. This is really neat. You can query regularly like you would, and then also query again for the same thing, but under an alias. And you can do an alias for anything you like. It's a really neat feature of GraphiQL. But this time we're grabbing it with Webp. So that allows me to just kind of grab this file one time instead of doing this whole query all over again. Okay. So going back over to here, you'll notice that, 4.5 megabytes. That is a big one, and we don't want that on mobile. That's not a great experience for our users. It really isn't. And I think that, most people would probably not have it that large on their websites. They would have brought it down a bit. But honestly, you have to have a pretty solid tool chain to accomplish this normally, outside of the Gatsby universe or any of the other modern ones that are doing this. Because, you have new images being added all the time. You need to make sure they always go through the same setup process. And it's just got to be pretty buttoned down, and things like that can slip in. Well, now we have a compressed version of it as a JPEG, and that's 12.7 KB. And then we have the Webp, which is 11.1 KB. So you might think that that's not that big of a difference, and it's not, but at such a small size, that's not bad. And these all add up if you have a ton of images. But let me show you if we were to resize this. You're going to get another request in 4339, and then you're going to get another request in 9182 JPEG to Webp. So you can see that as it gets larger, the gap is growing. Okay, and what I kind of want to point out here, you have to be pretty large to see, but we're getting more savings as it grows, and I don't think most people would notice this, but it is noticeable to me a little bit, and it probably is to people that look at images all day, or photos, photography, designers, and all that. This is a pretty smooth image. This is the raw, of course. And then here, this is a little bit pixelated, blocky, whatever. And then the Webp one, so that was the JPEG compression. This is the Webp one. It's in between. It's actually a little bit better looking to me than the JPEG compression, which is kind of crazy because size-wise, 82 versus 91, it's smaller. But, it is somewhat noticeable. And if that does bug you, if you're the type of person that, wants to kind of sacrifice the download speed for a better quality image, maybe that's what you do, is take photography or something, you can actually do this. This is really cool. You can go quality 100, and then you can come down here, and we can put it on here as well. So both of these fluid queries will bump up to 100. And sometimes you have to restart for this. Sometimes it just kicks in. Let me do a refresh. Here's the test. Can my eyes actually detect it? That looks the same to me. I'm pretty sure that hasn't kicked in. Let's go over to our terminal. Rebuild this real quick just to see. And this is obviously getting into the weeds as far as, going for max quality here and all that. But I wanted to show that you actually can do it. It's really cool. So oh, there we go. I think it already reloaded for us. So reload these in. Whoa, don't scroll us down. So here's the original. Yeah, that looks a lot better. It's almost indiscernible. It might be indiscernible. Yeah. So let's look at the file sizes now. So on small, you'll see that we have 154 KB and 54. So these are both 100 quality, but at a smaller size. So significantly smaller just because of the size. But then if we go all the way up, we look at our last ones, 1.3 megabytes versus 478 KB. So you can see the gap is growing quite a bit once we bump the quality up. And these are all great. Very unnoticeable difference to me. So, do it. It's great. So that's Webp. And what it is a modern image format. And actually, we can use, can I use Webp? Jump over here. What a great site. So the first thing you want to look at, in my mind, is the global usage of all browsers. So we're at 80%. So this is a pretty accepted feature as far as not needing backward support. You can see, like IE's obviously not supporting it. We don't really care too much about IE these days. It keeps dwindling with Microsoft deprecating it and all. Edge has good support, Firefox, Chrome. Safari's the new IE, unfortunately, kind of holding us back on that stuff. I really hope they get it together soon, but this happens a lot on all different features. And then, like I said, 80%. So why wouldn't people use this? Well, the web's been pushing for it for a while as a general image format. In fact, Lighthouse, recommends it. It gives you one of the potential savings when you run Lighthouse you check your site that you want to use modern image formats, and this is one of them. So the problem is the backward support is kind of tricky because you need to know before you serve the image whether that browser that the user is using can utilize Webp, and if they can't, you need to serve a fallback. So the whole fallback problem is really the crux of the issue, just because you have to set up a tool chain for that, and most people don't know. A lot of people don't even know about Webp, which is really surprising to me. But and then a lot of people, professionals in the scene, just don't even know about it. But also, you have to have a pretty sophisticated tool chain to have all that set up. So that's why. But Gatsby's doing that very easily for us, and that's awesome. I'm really excited about this. I think a lot of people are. It's pushing the web forward. I hope that other frameworks kind of adopt this, because this is Gatsby's killer app, so to speak. It's really what makes them stand out to me among the static site generation platforms. They've just really streamlined this image thing, and it's such a huge part of the speed of your website that, it makes a huge difference. So I think that that wraps a lot of this up. I want to walk away with one last feature that's really cool. There's so much stuff that I could go into here with this that I have to make a whole video for it. But something that's really cool is traced. There's this thing called traced SVG that's an alternative to the blur up that you've seen before. And I can just show you that through the demo without having to set it up real quick. So here's our blur up, normal functionality. I just have that on regular speed. Let's go to traced SVG. It's pretty cool, right? Let's look at it slower. So if we go to the fast 3G, you can see it a little bit better. Neat, huh? So I'll do slow and kind of talk about it real quick, and then we can close this up. So this is super sick, so cool. What it's doing is instead of getting those base64 images, it's downloading an SVG, because that's also really small and light and can be sent over the wire, before with the initial document. That's what I mean, part of the page. And so it can load all of these placeholder SVGs that it's built ahead of time based on the image data, and you can actually change these colors too. I wish it would support looking for like dominant colors and just putting those automatically, but it doesn't, unfortunately. But you can pick them manually if you have a different look to your site that you want. This is really, really cool, and just wow, what an awesome feature. I think this just makes your website feel so futuristic. It's really fantastic. So we'll close with that. Obviously, you can see I'm a fanboy of Gatsby Image. I love it, and I think that everyone, every framework and every tool chain should be doing something like it, hopefully even better pretty soon. So that's it for this one, and we'll move on to probably adding images in our Markdown so we can get closer to a real blog site and get all of these image benefits in our Markdown. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time.